How do you sell Schreiner University when you're recruiting a kid? Because I think there are a lot of great things here.
Yeah. Couple things. One, I think the school is absolutely elite in being invested in student success.
Mm-hmm.
So I always talk to the students, and particularly parents, are most interested in that, right?
Right.
If there's an issue, someone's going to be there checking on you, looking at, helping you get to where you want to go. Like the stats we have on admission to medical school and law school, like 98, 99%. There's a reason for that. Somebody went to law school. That means people have invested in you. That means somebody wrote you a really detailed and helpful letter of recommendation.
Yeah.
So, I mean, that's part of it, that small atmosphere. Obviously, having the opportunity to play your sport. And we sell our program as one that, has had a lot of success, going back a lot of years here, winning the championship in 17, winning it in 18, really being in the top half of the league every single year, other than the COVID year, which was just a disaster for everybody.
Yeah.
So, those are probably the two prongs. Hey, come get a great education and come be able to play in meaningful games in February and March. That's what being a college basketball player is all about. And you can do that training.
Hi, Marwan.
Hey, how you doing, Ted?
Look what we have over here.
That's some good memories right there.
Yeah, that's the conference championship tournament that you got at the end of last season, and it was a remarkable run. Went in as the 5th seed, and your team became the first 5th seed to ever win the conference championship, and you had to go through 3 higher seeds to get there.
Right.
Take us back to that run. You had an up and down season where you'd had some good moments and some not so good moments, and then all of a sudden it kicked in. How did that happen?
I think, and we've been talking about it a lot right now, all the good things that have happened for our team is when we've defended at a high level. And if you look at those games in the tournament, we got to a different level defensively. We really got connected, and guys just played, shot the ball really well. That always helps. But when you defend and you shoot the ball well, some really good things can happen.
And that sort of applies to this year. You've played 7 games.
Yep.
And you've been over 100 points 3 times.
Right.
But you've also given up over 90 points 3 times. So is the defense still a work in progress?
Yeah, it certainly is. I mean, we've been in some games that have been shootouts with some teams that, either want to press or just really like shorter possessions. And so that's skewed a little bit, but we definitely aren't where we need to be defensively right now. That's been a big focus of ours. We just came back from Alpine. And had probably our most complete defensive performance of the year against Sol Ross out there. So we're hoping that's trending in the right direction. But obviously, we got conference this weekend, and that's a whole new ballgame.
Yeah, conference begins soon. You were born in Egypt,
That's
Alexandria,
right.
Egypt.
That's right.
At what age did you come here?
My family immigrated to Houston, Texas when I was 4 years old.
Okay.
Yeah. My dad had a fellowship at St. Luke's Hospital there, so he's working at the hospital, and his older brother had actually come and worked in the Dallas area prior to him coming. So his thought was, I'm going to give my kids a better opportunity for education and advancement.
Have you been back to Egypt?
I have. It took a while to get back. It wasn't, from 4 to 18, we weren't able to make that trip. But when I was 18, I made it. Now I've kind of gone back 3 or 4 times in the interim as well.
What's your favorite part of it? I mean, and for me, I've never been there, but I'm fascinated by Egypt because we're like 250 years old,
Yeah.
and they can go back 5,000 years or something. What was the most interesting thing to you about Egypt?
So certainly we went back and did the touristy stuff. Did a cruise down the Nile, saw the Sphinx, saw the pyramids, and those are all really awe-inspiring. Like it's just incredible to look at it and see that this was created without any modern engineering. I think a comedian said just throwing a lot of human misery and suffering at something, and you can accomplish great things.
Yeah.
But with any place, the thing that makes it unique and special, and what I enjoyed about it was those moments with family. So when you grow up as an immigrant, you don't have that large extended family. So being able to go back to Egypt, sit on the balcony in Alexandria, see the ocean, play a card game with uncles, aunts, cousins, those are probably the memories that stick with me the most.
So you go from Houston and you end up at the University of Texas.
Hook 'em.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Hook 'em horns.
Yeah.
And you've got a law degree.
That's right.
So did your interest in coaching come first and you got the law degree as a backup, or were you going to be a lawyer and then you went into coaching? How did that happen?
Well, I've always loved basketball. I played, obviously going through my childhood. I was a 14, 15-year-old when the Houston Rockets won their championships in Houston, and so I was part of that. When you're a little kid and you get your hometown team wins. Played in high school and then got to college and continued to do things with it. So I started volunteering at the YMCA with like youth teams. I went and worked basketball camps at Texas University of Texas A&M, which that's fun when you're a UT guy and you go to a Texas A&M basketball camp. They really treat you well. But and it just kind of I really like this. And so going to law school, I started working at a local high school as a coach. When I became a lawyer, I continued to work at that high school, and then some circumstances came about where I got an opportunity to have a college job. And so I was kind of always on those two tracks, but always hoping and wishing that I could figure out a way to make basketball a full-time job, because that's the place where time didn't matter, where I felt like I could invest a lot of time, and it always felt fun and challenging and enjoyable.
Now, one of your jobs in Austin was you worked at a school for the deaf.
That's right.
You coached a school.
That's where the high school coaching opportunity came.
So what was that like? How do you communicate, and during a game, how do you get their attention? What was that like?
So I always said deaf athletes are identical to hearing athletes, except for obviously the lack of oral communication.
Right.
So as a coach, and particularly as a young coach, you do a lot of yelling.
Yes.
Because that's what you've seen.
Yeah, and in basketball, there's a lot of talking. On defense, there has to be a lot of communication.
There has to be a lot of communication. But just from the coaching perspective, you're so used to trying to create action with your voice. And you can't do that with deaf athletes. So it really actually forces you as a coach to be a lot more deliberate in the front end and make sure that you've done a lot of that work before. So because you're not going to have those same communication opportunities in the game. But those athletes are no different in terms of their ability, potential, the ups and downs that they have than hearing athletes. It was really that the Texas School for the Deaf and Chris Hamilton, who was the athletic director there at the time and the head men's basketball coach, gave me an opportunity to do what I loved. I wrote a letter to almost every high school in Austin that spring. I knew I was going to UT Law School, and I wanted to really start a coaching career. They were the ones. I had a relationship with them because while I was at UT, I'd studied sign language. And so I had taken some courses there, and I'd volunteered at the school. And so when I was running into all these dead ends at all these high schools, I said, I work at a high school. They've got a basketball team. And I think I had to put away a little bit of my own prejudice of like, well, deaf athletes, that's not really the same. No, it's absolutely a great opportunity. And the deaf community gave me so many opportunities, including that first high school job and my first college job at Gallaudet University in D.C.
So on defense, how do they communicate? Because you've got to say screen left, screen right. You've got to, shout out. So how did you communicate on defense?
So at Gallaudet, it was interesting because Coach Brendan Stern there decided that because of those challenges, the best thing to do was to play zone defense. Okay. So they played 100% zone defense. Yeah. And obviously with zone, there is some communication that you need as well, but you can see a little bit more of what's going on. Offensively, at Texas School for the Deaf, we were playing mostly man, and it's a lot of touching. So it's a lot of touching. It's a lot of pushing, guys through screens. There are players that have different levels of residual hearing. So you don't have, everyone's not completely deaf, so they can hear some sounds or hear some tones. So you just kind of pieced it together what you had.
Yeah, fascinating. Coaching is, I've always been fascinated by people who, it's called the coaching bug. And the bug does get into it. It's almost like the broadcasting bug,
Okay.
And I remember Pat Riley saying one time that there are two emotions that a coach feels: total elation or abject misery. You win, you lose. There's no in between. How do you live with that?
I heard somebody say, coaching college basketball, it means being able to lie down in a bed with pain.
Yeah.
Just be able to be comfortable with that.
Yeah.
You have to do what you tell your players to do all the time, which is to be process oriented, right? If you do the right things, you take the right shot, you have the right plan, and you come up short, you've got to, understand that it's a process of getting better. You got to have a growth mindset. All those things that we tell our players, you have to, as a coach, try to practice that. Now, we all know that it's really hard to do that because you take it so personal, right? When your team loses, that loss is on you. It's on top of your head as you're
You think of all the things you could have done different.
Right. And if they win, it's the players.
Yeah.
Right? Coach Bill Raleigh says that all the time, right?
Yeah.
The play, he never won a game, but he lost a lot of them. And he says that as a coach, and I think that there's some truth to that because you feel like when you put the players in a position to be successful, they get that credit for the win. When as a team we're not successful, you ultimately feel a ton of responsibility. What could I have done to put us in a better position to be competitive?
I've also heard coaches say that the victory is nice, but you forget about the victory really quickly because you're thinking about the next game, and the memory of the loss will last longer than the thrill of the win. Is that correct?
I mean, I've always, from a very young age, been of the mantra, and I learned this from Connor Kirkendall at Southwestern. You got to enjoy every win. Because it's like oxygen. Just enjoy it. If it's an ugly win, if it's one you didn't even deserve, just enjoy it. And we celebrate like crazy in the locker room every time we win.
Yeah.
But I mean, to your point, there was a famous game, I think Indiana, Kentucky. Kentucky was ranked number 1 in the country. Tom Crean was the coach for Indiana.
Okay.
And it was a long pass and a difficult shot, and they win at the buzzer. So, and they're in Indiana. The place is going bananas. Everybody's going crazy. They pan over to Tom Crean. And he's got no joy in his face. The only thing he's feeling is relief. And I actually had a chance to see him at a camp recently, and I never met him before. And I asked him about that. I said, I remember that clip, and he said, I was still mad about 2 plays ago when we screwed up the ball screen coverage and why we gave that up. I said, yeah, that makes sense.
Yeah. Here at Schreiner University, you've got athletes who want to have athletics as part of their college experience, but they're here to get a degree. Right. And for most of these kids, there's no next level. There's no NIL. This is part of their college experience. Do you enjoy that part of it where really education does come before athletics, and that's not always the case at Division I?
Yeah, I can't speak to Division I schools. I haven't been there, but we certainly have true student athletes here. They have to balance responsibilities. I mean, we went to Washington. The way that trip fell, it was on the weekend that was surrounded by our finals. And so we did the best we could to kind of leave as late as we could and came back early. But we had to actually administer one of the finals up there in Washington for one of our players, Camden Ross, who needed to take his organic chemistry final. Yeah. And so this young man is on a plane. Drive to get on a plane. We get up to Washington. We drive to the hotel. He's been up for 10, 12 hours. He takes an organic chemistry test, and then he's got to get himself ready to play in a game.
Yeah.
So it's really admirable that they do it because they love this sport. They don't do it because it's not the college. I always tell recruits, it's not the college basketball you see on TV. Mm-hmm. You're not doing it because there's a lot of money in it or a ton of attention. What we do is we try to do the best we can in the environments that we get to start, and then if we do the right things, we'll get a chance to play in some really cool environments like the SCAC tournament was. Yeah. We'll get a chance to play in the NCAA tournament. But you're doing it really to figure out how good can I be. You got to be desperate to figure that out, I think, to be a small college basketball player. How
do you sell Schreiner University when you're recruiting a kid? Because I think there are a lot of great things here.
Yeah, couple things. One, I think the school is absolutely elite in being invested in student success. Mm-hmm. So I always talk to the students, and particularly parents, are most interested in that, right?
Right.
If there's an issue, someone's going to be there checking on you, looking at helping you get to where you want to go. Like the stats we have on admission to medical school and law school, like 98, 99%. There's a reason for that. Somebody went to law school. That means people have invested in you. That means somebody wrote you a really detailed and helpful letter of recommendation. Yeah. So, I mean, that's part of it, that small atmosphere. Obviously, having the opportunity to play your sport. And we sell our program as one that, has had a lot of success, going back a lot of years here, winning the championship in 17, winning it in 18, really being in the top half of the league every single year, other than the COVID year, which was just a disaster for everybody. Yeah. So, those are probably the two prongs. Hey, come get a great education and come be able to play in meaningful games in February and March. That's what being a college basketball player is all about, and right. You can do that at Schreiner.
And you're in a conference that's very competitive.
Absolutely.
There's some good teams: Trinity, St. Thomas, Southwestern. There's some good basketball.
Right. They beat up on us all last year until the tournament. So yeah, they're obviously really good. We actually beat 3 teams that had beat us twice.
Right.
In league play last year, but it's a wide open league. You've got so many teams that have been. At or near the top. Centenary won it a couple years ago. St. Thomas went through the league undefeated until the SCAC tournament last year. Trinity I don't think they technically got the regular season title in the COVID year, but they were the best team in the regular season that year. So just in the last 5 years, you've had 4 or 5 different teams that have won either a regular season or SCAC tournament title.
Talking to Coach Rock, Marwan Elrakabawy, head basketball coach here at Schreiner. I'm going to go back. You said you were how old were you when the Rockets won their championships?
It was 94, 95, so I was 14 or 15. I just dated myself. There it is.
Oh, man.
Yeah.
I've been doing NBA games for 10 years.
Okay. Yeah. So
Dang.
that seems like a lot of fun. That seems like to be able to be around the team and kind of see the.
Yeah.
You know, I think as a young coach, you're always desperate for perspective on like, hey, what's like at that level? What's like, and I know me and you have talked about, you know, trying to get into one of those training camps one of these days to see what that looks like. But
yeah,
being able to be around the team every day, I think that was that fun.
Oh well, yeah. I mean, I never felt like I was working.
Yeah.
And you know, I got to see the best basketball in the world.
Yeah.
Up close. And I always tell people, they say, what do you miss? You know, I did it for 37 years, and I was ready to do something else. But I do miss sitting down and doing the games.
Yeah.
Because that level of basketball is the highest in the world.
Right.
And I really enjoyed getting to see a player like Giannis come in as a 18-year-old, 180-pound, skinny rookie who got pushed all over the court in his rookie year.
Yeah.
And what we didn't know is that he had the desire to not just be good but be great, and he put in the work to go from 180 to like 240 and just become a battering ram.
Right.
And even though he doesn't have a great shot necessarily on the outside, he can put up 33, 34, 35 points a game.
50.
Or 50 in the championship game just on pure athletic ability.
Yeah.
You know, and that's fun to watch. And, you know, you've had kids, I'm sure, that when they came in as a freshman and they develop and you can see their progress, that's got to be rewarding to you too.
Yeah, I mean, take a look at Dylan Mackey, you know, SCAC Player of the Week in week 2 of the league. And if you look at his stats from freshman year to sophomore year, jump. Sophomore year now to junior year, another jump.
Yeah.
He's just continuing to move up his minutes, his productivity, his efficiency. Bo Cervantes, as a freshman, compare what he did as a freshman to a sophomore, you know, being sparingly used and then becoming, you know, winning himself into a starting job in sophomore year.
Yeah.
You know, Camden Ross continues to improve. He started off so great as the freshman player of the year in the SCAC, so he hasn't has much room to move up, but he's still getting better every day.
Do you ever have to tell him to be more aggressive sometimes?
You know, I think with Cam, the main coaching with him is asking him to be more assertive in terms of asking for the ball.
Yeah.
He plays a very unselfish brand of basketball. If you look at what he does, he rebounds and he shoots really efficient shots.
Yeah.
Well, we got to get him more shots because he shoots it at such a impressive clip.
Yeah.
And so sometimes, hey, you've got to demand that ball down there. And so that's probably the biggest conversation back and forth we've been having is demand that ball, ask for it, continue to post. And if we don't get it to you, you know, let me deal with it. But you've got to continue to ask for it.
Yeah. On December 15th, you'll have your first home games here this year, and I'll be doing them on ShrinerMountaineers.com. Looking forward to it. You got a men's and women's game that day. And thanks for coming by.
No, absolutely. Thanks for having me.
Marwan Elrakabawy, the head basketball coach here at Schreiner University. That's been our TED Talk. That's been our sit down here at Schreiner, and we'll see you next time.